Today's episode is being brought to you by Untarnished, Reclaiming My Self-Worth Through God's Untainted Love. Untarnished is a compelling memoir and simple self-help guide where I give you the inside scoop on my personal journey and provide coping strategies to help others heal from their past. You can download a free copy of the first chapter by heading over to DeAnnaCheree.com/untarnished. You're listening to Untarnished Moments, the podcast that helps you shine through life challenges and move past self-defeat into victory. I'm your host, Donna Cherie. Let's get into today's show. What's up, everybody? It's Donna Cherie. Welcome back to another episode of Untarnished Moments. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast and, of course, share it with somebody that you know. Share it with someone that you believe this podcast will be helpful to. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Dr. DeAnna Murphy. She is a licensed professional counselor, mental health therapist, and focuses in the area of a trauma-informed approach as well as dual diagnosis. So welcome to the show, Dr. DeAnna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
So I am Dr. DeAnna Chanel Murphy. I have a private practice in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We are 4 years old. The name of the practice is called Synergy Care and Counseling. And I have been in the field of mental health since the year 2004. However, I've been a licensed therapist for the past 9 years.
Awesome. And what brought you to the field of mental health?
I just kind of landed in the field of mental health. Growing up as a kid, I wanted to be an attorney. While in college, I quickly learned that that was not the path for me. Quickly after graduating from undergrad, I just started seeking a job out in the just looking for job placement. And one of the first places that I looked outside of my first job, which was in retail, it was in the field of mental health. And I can be completely honest, when I got out of my car and as I walked up to the building, I saw a lot of things that I didn't like. My heart fell for the homeless people that were standing outside. And I was thinking, what am I going to do every day? Like, I have this soft heart. Will I have change every day to assist them? Will I have time to talk to them? And I went inside the interview and I tried with every effort to bomb the interview, just so that my mom would know that I was out here looking for a job. I didn't want to just say, no, I don't want the interview. So I went in with every effort. I tried to bomb it. Within the next day, they called me back and said, hi, we would like to offer you this position. So I tried to give this high dollar amount. They accepted the dollar amount. Needless to say, the next week I was working in mental health and my life forever changed. I started off as a case manager. And from there, I was thinking, like, outside of providing individuals with resources, what more can I do? Because I just fell in love with the mental health and substance abuse population. And I began to speak with coworkers and they were like, well, you can always be a therapist. And I looked up the requirements to seek out becoming a licensed therapist in North Carolina. And here I am now, all these years later, doing what I love each and every day.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you had experience as a case manager.
Yes, yes. And I believe that the experience as a case manager is what truly has helped me with knowing what type of training I wanted to seek out and what type of therapist I wanted to become. Many of the individuals I was working with had gone through different traumatic situations in their life, from seeing death, from being abused and being in long-term relationships that where abuse were a part of it. And I said, just being a case manager, I don't believe I have all the necessary training for this. So that is kind of why I decided to further my education and become a therapist.
Regarding mental health, what is it and who can be affected by it?
Okay. So mental health pretty much just refers to our cognitive, which is our thinking, and our behavioral well-being to stress. So in a nutshell is how we handle stress and our ability to relate to others. Our mental health, it can impact the individual who is who is going through the stressful situation, as well as other people who surround us who may be impacted by our inability to manage our stress.
Even a child can be affected in a sense or have like stressful situations. Would
Most
you?
definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. I think, like as an adult, we tend to have a routine. We know how we want to wake up in the morning, get dressed, get in our car, go to work, whether we stop and get coffee or tea. And if there are any slight changes in our morning routine, then our day is thrown off. Anxiety may show up, frustration, irritability may appear. And I think sometimes we believe that that's just for adults. But no, children, they have a routine also. And when their morning is thrown off, they may have temper tantrums. They may be irritable. They may not want to get up. They may stomp their feet and not want to go off to school. But yes, children can definitely be impacted with a mental illness. Sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes it is a result of the circumstances and of life that have presented for that child.
Okay, that's good to know. And hopefully, by the time that we finish this interview, people will have a better understanding of what mental health is and mental illness, and it could be helpful to them and if they have children.
Most definitely.
So I've heard people say before, everyone has some kind of mental health challenges or mental illness. What's
Mhm.
your take on such a statement as that?
I believe everyone may present with symptoms. However, not everyone will receive a diagnosis.
Hmm.
Everyone may not receive a diagnosis because they have not gone to a licensed therapist or a psychiatrist or psychologist to provide them with that diagnosis, or they may not understand what's going on with them, so they may not even know what to present when help is offered. But I do believe that we all may have symptoms, but not everyone will receive a diagnosis. I think that sometimes when we are interacting with our family and our friends, we may say, oh, you have this or you have that, not knowing or not being educated on the requirement for it. But in order to receive a diagnosis, you have to have a certain number of presenting symptoms. It must be for a certain time frame, and then the frequency of how often it happens, that is also important when giving a diagnosis. But yes, we all have symptoms, but not everyone has a diagnosis.
Thanks for that clarification. How does someone recognize any signs of mental illness?
I believe we need to look at the changes. For instance, like changes in someone's mood, changes in their behavior patterns. For instance, are they eating more? Are they eating less? Their hobbies, if they're no longer interested in doing hobbies that have once given them fulfillment, I think that's a sign. Social outings, if they're more withdrawn, if they're isolated, fatigue, irritability, and just looking at it from a standpoint of not jumping to them and saying, oh, you need therapy, just because it's been one day of the individual having these behaviors, but more so if it's frequently happening, or if you always notice this behavior during certain times of the year, in the wintertime, in the summertime, during holidays, just noticing the pattern. So not jumping to conclusions, but checking for a pattern, and looking at a number of symptoms, not just one or two symptoms, but a number of symptoms that that individual could be presenting with. And also the time frame. If you notice that someone has been isolating for a week or two, then we definitely may want to speak with them. But if it's just for a weekend, they just may need rest. And that's all they're doing is resting that weekend. But definitely looking at the time frame in which that behavior has been going on.
Okay, and let me ask you this because this just came to my mind while you were talking. But is it possible if somebody does receive a diagnosis, say, like if they received a diagnosis when they were a teenager,
Mhm.
is it possible? I don't necessarily say for it to go away, but that there can be a change later on, cognitively or in their behavior that like it's not as present as it was before, even if they're not receiving medication or therapy.
Yes, I do believe it is. And sometimes, like, our brain is just so, not sometimes, but all the time, our brain is just so powerful at helping us heal. And so there are some instances where a child may have ADD or ADHD as a child, and it may taper off when they become an adult, or they just may learn themselves what works for them and what does not work for them. Some parents, I think it's great for parents to be aware of their children and not have this super high expectation of how they want their child to be in comparison to how they were, or the ideal the perfect idea of how they want their child to be. So we have to just observe our child's behavior. Therapy is not an option for some households. Some households are just completely against therapy, and some households are against medication. But learning what that child's behavior is or that adult's behavior is, and educating them, both the parent become educated and educating the child on what's happening. For instance, if you know your child has testing anxiety, it would be a matter of, how about we learn what anxiety is? From there, we can be better prepared on some different coping skills that we can work with you on, so that when you get to high school or college, you can be more successful at taking tests and not feel that overwhelming pressure to have to get 100, or having to pass it with an A or a B for that exam. So yes, by learning the appropriate coping skills, an individual with some diagnoses can, I don't want to say be weaned off, but they can have, their symptoms can be lessened by the time they are an adult.
Yeah, and I, like in my 9 to 5 job, I work with a lot of individuals, and some of them have had diagnosis before, and I don't always feel so equipped to help them. And I just
Mhm.
believe I need to learn so much more about mental health and the resources that's available for them, and just be knowledgeable in this area. So I
Yes.
want to do more of that.
And I think that's the case. And thank you for even having that heart of willingness to want to learn more about the field and help out. I believe that as a culture and as a society, if more of us had that open heart, it wouldn't be such a shame or an embarrassment for some people to announce that they do have a mental illness. I also believe that sometimes when we have a thought process of it's weak to have that mindset, or having the thought of no one else around me has this mental illness, you can be fearful or afraid to want to ask for help. But if we all had a mindset of, or a heart of, let me see how I can help. How can I better guide this individual? Who can I assist them with getting better help for? I just think that we would be better off, and it would be more it would be a topic that we would discuss more so than kind of shunning away from it.
Absolutely. I totally agree. So, what can a loved one or friend do to support someone who may be in need of mental health services?
If the person cognitively can answer this question, I believe we should ask them, how can I help you? Sometimes they may just want us to listen. Sometimes our presence is just enough. But asking them, how can I help you? That's one thing. The second is just what you spoke on before, is educating yourself on their behaviors. What are their triggers? What do their behaviors look like? How can I assist them when I notice their rage is increasing, their depression is at a high? How can I educate myself on being able to be of assistance for them? Express concern. Let them know that you care and you're noticing that their behaviors are just shifting at a rapid pace, and you want to assist them with getting some help. No judgment. I'm not trying to diagnose you. I'm not trying to pass any judgment. I just want to assist you. Another thing we can do is listen, and most definitely encourage them to seek therapy. And those are just a few that I can say. But in the midst of that, take care of yourself. Sometimes we can take on the whole "I'm going to save the world" mentality, and we can find ourselves trying to save everyone and help everyone but ourselves. So if you're working, or if you're in a relationship or you have a family member who has had a sign of mental illness, take care of yourself before you try to help take care of them. Notice what your burnout signs look like. Notice what your triggers are when dealing with this individual. Notice them first, then offer help to them second.
And I had another question too while you were
Mhm.
saying those things, and it slipped my mind. Maybe it'll come back to me. But But that was a really good point too about self-care and just taking care of yourself first.
And sometimes
And
we just want to jump in the fire and help them.
yeah, yes. Yes. And then too, like I think too, a lot of times, even in the Black and Brown community, like
Hmm.
we throw words
Hmm.
out so loosely about, this person being bipolar, or
Hmm.
this person is doesn't care. And it made me think about too, just also, so like, say if you do have a friend or a loved one who you might have an inkling that they're in need of some kind of help, or they may have a mental illness, but you see them like withdrawing, and you want to be there to support them, but like they're just so distant. Should
Yes.
should should somebody keep on? I don't want to say like pushing them, but should they continue to show up? Should they just back away or give them their space? Like, what can they do in that instance? And I
I
want to
don't
say,
think there is any harm in. No,
oh, go
please go
ahead.
ahead. Hmm.
Oh no, and I guess maybe not so much with thinking about bipolar, but like when people have experienced depression, or they feel like they're in this depressed state, they tend to kind of withdraw. And I know, like for myself, I've dealt with a person, they weren't necessarily my friend, but they were like a friend of a friend, but I was working with this person on a specific project. And every time I would reach out to her, like she would just go MIA for days. And I
Yes.
would get upset and like, what is wrong with this person? But she had like this continuous pattern of doing it, and I
Yes.
didn't really know how to support her, or if I should like keep calling her, or if I should back away. What should somebody do in that case?
You're so right. We are definitely creatures of habit. And one thing that I would suggest is that when the individual comes out of that isolation period, and they're in a good space, express your concern to them then. Just say, hey, I noticed that you have a pattern of withdrawing, and you typically are withdrawn for 2 to 3 days, or however the case may be for that individual, and ask them, how can I better help you when you are withdrawing? Is there anything that I can do? Do my text messages, do they offend you? Do they make you more upset? Or are they comforting knowing that my presence is near? Should I come by? Should I give you a call? Should I continue to call you even when your phone is off? Are you checking your voice messages? But in the past, what has helped you come out of this isolating period faster? And what can I do to better assist you? I think we can overwhelm ourselves on, am I doing enough? What should I be doing more of? Instead of just finding out from the individual. And if they don't know, and if they say, I would just rather be left alone, I would charge you to do what's best for you. It maybe is not sending a text message every single day, but you can send that text message every other day if you are truly concerned about them. I am not saying that we need to assume that everyone who isolates will commit suicide, because that is not the case. Some people just need a break, a social break from individuals, and that's why they isolate. They're not quite sure on how to express that. We have to remember that as individuals, we all go through a period of fight, flight, or freeze. And some people flight whenever they've had a lot of high stressors. Flight means you just remove yourself, you withdraw from the conversation, from the individuals, from the family, and you isolate within your home. If this is a pattern, I'm not going to say that it's a healthy pattern, but if this is that person's pattern, just ask them when they are in a better period or in a better space, how can I better help you? Just because in your mind you already know that there will come another time frame when that person will begin to withdraw again.
Sound really good, and I will even myself personally implement that when I come
Yes,
across that.
that's definitely something that I ask my individuals in therapy when they come to me. I do ask them about their behaviors and how do they handle stress, and what would they like for me to do if they have missed one or two appointments. I don't want them to feel like it's about giving them a late fee or a no-show fee. It's not about that. I just want to know the individual with whom I'm working with. And 9 times out of 10, the individual will tell me, no one has ever asked me that before. People just
Mm.
assume that I'm suicidal. People just assume that I'm sad, or that I'm mad with them, or that I'm upset with them. And it's never the case. A lot of times they are just withdrawn. Sometimes they may be upset, but not because of behaviors that you have presented towards them. They could be upset with themselves. It could be extreme guilt or shame because of something that they are feeling guilty about, not anything that you as an individual has done. Sometimes I think we may take it personal and feel like, did I do something? Did
Mm-hmm.
I shame them? Did I hurt them? No, we can't always assume that we are the problem. If someone is dealing with mental illness, this is, again, remember their ability of how they manage the stress that they are experiencing in life. It doesn't have anything to do with you and I. It is that individual.
What are some starter coping strategies when someone is facing a crisis and learning how to deal with it in a healthy manner? Like I know
Okay.
some people, just for example, like I know some individuals, instead of maybe talking out a problem, they get angry or they might hit a
Mhm.
wall or do something. I don't want to necessarily say violent, but their anger just goes to an extreme. What is something that they can do to deal with
Okay.
it in a healthy manner?
I think that we all should take a break. We have developed such a hustle culture mentality where we feel like we just got to keep going, keep going. I'm angry, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, but I don't want to use my time off at work. So then at the end of the year, you have accumulated all of this time because you didn't take a self care day or a personal day. When we feel ourselves becoming so angry or so low with energy, maybe we need to take a break and just regroup. That's the first thing I would say do. Learning ways to relax. There is an acronym, HALT. Don't make decisions when you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. So if you feel yourself hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, those are the moments before we decide to make any major decision. Let me just halt. Let me just stop and see what I need to do before I just jump into making a decision that may impact those who are around me. One thing that I love to do when it comes to relaxing is that if my mind is constantly high, because I tend to have a lot of high energy, that means my thoughts are kind of running rampant in my mind as well. I love to listen to guided meditations. I don't have anyone in particular that I'm more fond of than not. I will go on YouTube. And when you go on YouTube, you just type in guided meditations. For me, my favorite guided meditations are those for children because the individual, the narrator, they just have a way of breaking down what I should be doing with my body in such a gentle way that is more appropriate for me than the adults. They have beautiful guided meditations from you being in a clubhouse to you flying over the zoo. And who doesn't want to go back to a child's spine, from time to time? And I just absolutely love it because hearing the gentleness in their voice, hearing the descriptions that they're providing is so far off from my everyday life that I can just be in my imagination for those 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long I choose to be in that guided meditation. If you say, no, sis, that's not for me, give me some adult stuff, just go into Google, type in guided meditations, and you can have control over the time frame that you want to use, whether it's 10 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. If you want to use this for sleeping, you can put it on for an hour and just listen to those. It's just a great way to kind of help me or help individuals who are in the middle of a height in their emotions. Another way is breathing. Our breathing is so central to our mind and to our body. The powerful thing about meditation is that you're focusing on your breathing. So if you can just stop for a moment and breathe, that tends to help us out a lot. We can be so anxious or so excited to get the last word or to make someone understand our point. And sometimes if we just sit back and just do some deep breathing, we won't say things that will hurt other people's feelings or we won't use words that we can't take back. One key to breathing, I would say, is that your exhale should be much longer than your inhale. So if you inhale for 4 seconds, your exhale should be for about 7 to 8 seconds. So you're breathing out. Okay. One thing that I use for adults, because in a session, I may say, how about we do some deep breathing? The individual, all I see are their shoulders bouncing or their chest moving. That's not proper. one way to change it so that it can be proper as a it's just all in the language. I may say, smell the roses. You don't smell the roses with your mouth open. You smell it with your nose. So you inhale. And then I say, blow out the candles, because that way you're having to blow all the air out through your mouth.
Mm.
Therefore, the inhale and the exhale isn't coming in and out through your nose. They're separate. So we smell the roses and then we blow out the candles. Okay. And that's just a pretty good way to bring some balance within our life with our emotions.
Yeah, and everyone who's listening, I hope you're really taking notes today, because those are some good coping strategies to get started if you are dealing with the crisis or if you feel like your emotions are getting heightened. Dr. Murphy just told you two things that you could do to get started and to
Yes.
help you feel better.
Yes. More would be getting rest and watching our eating. Sometimes when we are with our eating, we may want to overeat or we may want to undereat, but we have to pay attention to what we're consuming. It's called junk food for a reason. When we eat the junk food, days of eating it, we will feel junky. So we need to try to eat more healthy and more clean whenever we do feel our anxiety or our depression at an all-time high or low. So just eating healthier foods and trying to get some rest. I know sleep can be a problem sometimes if we've gone through something traumatic. Our nervous system is still high and we're just like, oh my goodness, I can't sleep. But what are some healthy things? Just trying to relax. Let's not get caught up in the fact of I can't sleep as much as I need to relax. And if it is your mind having those intrusive thoughts, listening to the guided meditations are so helpful with stopping our brain from thinking with the intrusive thoughts. And now it's being guided. And I probably should have explained this a little easier, but guided meditations would be an example of that would have someone's voice giving you commands of what you should be doing with your body. They may start off with lie down or sit up straight, relax your jawbone, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and they just go through your body, giving commands for each part of your body to relax. And I promise you it works. Sometimes when I listen to it, they may say, relax your shoulders. I don't even recognize or realize that my shoulders were up high like earrings. So when they say, relax your shoulders, I'm like, oh, wow, my shoulders were up high, and I just feel a release then. When they say, wiggle your toes, how often do we even notice our toes in our shoes once we put our shoes or socks or stockings on? So just listening to those commands, we crave control so often that sometimes we do need someone else to be in control with what's going on. And guided meditation is a safe way to have that, to be able to release some control to another voice so we can recognize what's happening within our own body.
And how often would you recommend someone do guided meditation?
So on some days with my clients as a therapist, I will listen to guided meditations several times a day. I do not have the privilege and honor of listening to a 20 or 30-minute session. However, in my practice, I schedule 50-minute sessions. So when it's the 50th minute of each hour, I am concluding our session. And sometimes I will do a 5-minute meditation throughout the day. Why? Because I believe it's important to reset for my next person that I'm going to see. So I use a Peloton app just for exercise purposes. That's another thing that I do for my for coping skills, is just to exercise. And I have cardio days where I just go long cardio, or I may do a 20-minute cardio. But I will pull out my Peloton app, and while using the app, I'm in control of how many minutes I can afford. And sometimes I am listening to the same meditation every single time, each time I pull my phone out. But I don't believe we can have enough of resetting our body. It's just that simple, resetting. Sometimes I don't need the guided meditation. I can guide my body. But to answer your question, as often as needed.
All right. That's excellent, excellent, excellent strategies. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Let's move in a different direction just slightly. It still kind of pertains to mental health, but
Hmm.
nowadays people are using the word trauma very
Hmm.
loosely. Like everything is traumatic. So many
Right.
traumas. they're calling so everything they're calling everything nearly traumatic that they experience, but may not
Mm-hmm.
which may not be the case.
Right.
How is trauma defined from a clinical point of view?
Okay, so there are three different types of trauma. We have acute trauma, and that is from one single incident that has happened. Okay, then we have chronic trauma. That is when we have repeated or prolonged situations that are happening. For instance, domestic violence or abuse, and then we have complex trauma, and that is exposure to a variety of multiple traumatic events. Okay. Now, there's a difference between trauma and PTSD because, like trauma, I hear so many individuals saying that I have PTSD. Well, one little fun fact is that 6 out of 100 people have, let's say there are 100 people who have experienced a traumatic situation. Only 6 of them will have the diagnosis of PTSD. Okay. So PTSD is the diagnosis that is given to the individuals who have experienced a traumatic situation. Okay. So how does trauma show up? It shows up like someone being easily startled or frightened. They're in the grocery store and someone may come up behind them and just say, "Hi, I like your shoes." Well, they're caught off guard. So their startled response is a little higher. You're caught off guard at a higher rate. Self destructive behavior, meaning you're over drinking, you're speeding, you're gambling, trouble sleeping. Trouble sleeping is really big when it comes to trauma. Someone in your life has just passed away and you were there in their transition. That can be very traumatic for the individual. So now you have nights of not sleeping, even well beyond the funeral or their homegoing service. It's months later and you're still having a difficult time sleeping. That's because that was a traumatic situation for you. Difficulty concentrating. A situation has occurred and now it's time for you to return to work. Well, while you're at work, you can't focus because your mind is constantly thinking about that situation, whether it was the guilt associated from it, the you being upset that it happened, you replaying over and over in your mind, what could I have done differently? Should I have been there? Why did this happen to me? So just having that rehearsed conversation over and over in your mind. There is an irritability. You were once a people would have described you as a peaceful person or an even keel type of individual, and now you're irritable. And it's the irritability is throughout the day, or you could be an irritable person, and now it's more frequently than it was before. So there are more anger outbursts, there are more aggressive behaviors, there is more snapping. And again, just that overwhelming feeling of feeling guilty or shame associated from the situation that has happened.
How does, when it comes to like PTSD, if someone is that 6 out of the 100 people,
Mhm.
what can they do to manage that?
One of the greater options would be therapy. However, because sometimes so one thing that I do know is that individuals who are not in the field of mental health, they may associate PTSD with military, okay? That is not the case. There can be a serious car you could be involved in a serious car accident and that could leave you with PTSD, meaning now you will not get in a car and drive or ride with anyone. You have to be the individual that is doing the driving. You may not want to go over bridges. You may not want to take the highway. You may take the longer route just so you can avoid the busy highway or the scene in which the car accident may have occurred. You could have survivor's guilt. You could have been the individual in a car while others may have passed away. Yes, and you're still having these avoidant behaviors. Yes, that could be PTSD. What I would say is that the best way to manage it is to go through therapy, or the symptoms will manage you, meaning they will tell you what to do and what not to do, whether it is not eating or whether it is being avoided. And some people may believe that as long as I can avoid the situation, then I'm good, I'm fine. But what happens when you're in a situation that you can't avoid? So we don't want to prepare for the symptoms we have today, but we want to be prepared for the unforeseen, what we don't know what may happen in the future. So getting a therapist, a licensed clinical therapist to speak with can highly assist you because your symptoms may be really low today. but we don't know what they may look like a month from now. There are also situations where the PTSD symptoms, they may not begin immediately after the traumatic situation has happened. It may be months down the road or a year down the road before you are noticing these symptoms occurring. So it's never too late to get help for PTSD, even if a situation happened when you were a child, but you still find yourself presenting with the trauma as an adult. It's never too late. We should just always want to show up and want to help our bodies because we love ourselves and we love our bodies, and we are deserving of having a lifestyle where we can cope with the diagnoses that we have. I do know that with PTSD, sometimes the brain may say you were so out of control when that situation happened that you will never be out of control again. So this is where we have individuals who may be really, really controlling. We may have some people who may suffer with OCD. So all the doors have to be closed in the house. All of the cabinets have to be shut. All of the dresser drawers have to be shut. I've had some instances, even with myself, where when I am, and one thing, Donna Sharita, I didn't realize with myself was that when I first got married, I remember this was the first time my husband and I were living together, and we were laying in the bed. It was probably like a month after we had gotten married, and I got up out of the bed to close the closet door, and then I laid down. And he looked at me and his thoughts were, well, his words were, was it that serious? Like, did you need that door to be closed? And I was thinking, like, maybe I didn't, but I did for whatever reason. So just him pointing that out allowed me to see that, hey, there is something going on here. And maybe that isn't normal. But one thing that he didn't do was shame me or make me feel that my behavior wasn't tolerable or that my behavior wasn't appropriate. So when we notice behaviors in individuals in our lives who have experienced something traumatic, our tone should be very important. And we shouldn't have a tone of accusing or making that individual feel like they have to defend us, have to defend themselves with whatever statement that they're going to provide back.
And just
Why are you laughing?
I'm laughing because what you just shared about you and your husband laying in bed, I do that. So not every night, but sometimes I go, and if the closet door is open, I have to close it, or the bathroom, I close it. So, and I mean, I don't necessarily know, but hey, maybe that's something I need to look into to see why I
It's
do
something with
it.
safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely with safety, and it doesn't just stop with those big doors. It can be dresser drawers, it can be kitchen cabinets, just something out of place. Let me get up and let me close that. Let
Mm-hmm.
let me close it. And another is leaving the house and wondering, you know what? Oh my goodness, is the iron unplugged? Did I leave the iron unplugged? And just returning back home to check different things for safety. One thing that I do know is that when our safety has been violated, all our brain knows is safety. So you may not have been in a situation where your home may have burned down, but your safety could have been violated. And for that reason, you measure safety across the board in all areas of your life.
Yeah, and that's because I even think about, like, sometimes when I go to the restaurant, like
Mm-hmm.
I have to see what's going on, or I have to
Yes.
be facing the door, or
Mm-hmm.
and not out of paranoia, but just for safety. So.
Yes, for safety. And think about this, sis. How often during our day are we on high alert? For instance, sometimes I speak to people and they're like, oh, I'm not stressed. My life is fine. But if we're getting out of the bed to close a door, if we are sitting strategically in a restaurant or walking with purpose in the mall or
Hmm.
constantly being aware of what's happening around us, how can we say we are not living a stressed life when everything we do is with strategy? So
Hmm.
there are more of us walking around stressed than we can admit or that we even notice. And I'm hoping that the listeners are just really sitting back, assessing their life. Like, am I putting my body through fight or flight, through fight or flight mode several times throughout the day just to measure my safety?
Yeah, that's powerful. That
It
is
is.
powerful.
It is. And then we sit back and we look at heart disease and other diagnoses that come, other medical diseases that are impact related to our stress. But when we sit in there with a doctor, we're like, but I'm not stressed. How did this happen? You
Mm-hmm.
know, you work out, you know, you're eating healthy, but we don't always look at our stress levels. And stress is very common with a lot of the diseases that we're experiencing. This kind of goes back to that superwoman complex that a lot of my Black and brown sisters go through. We fight so hard. We've been told, you may have been told that your success in life will be challenged. You may not graduate. You're not going to have this. You won't have that. So at young ages, we learn how to fight and push through. And so that's all we know. And so because that's how our mind is now developed, or our way of thinking is, we fight through every situation. And there are some times or some instances where we don't need to fight. We just need to relax and just let life happen. But because we don't know that, because we have started fighting at an early age, we continue to fight in longer ages. And so you take a heart that's been fighting since the age of 4 or 5, and now that heart is 40 or 45 or 50. Imagine the damage that's happening on the inside because of all of the self-inflicted stress that we've kind of put it through. Fighting for jobs, fighting for love, fighting for approval, fighting because of abandonment. It's a lot. And there's just a strong connection between our emotional heart and the physical heart that's pumping within our body. And sometimes we just have to learn how to halt and stop and sit still and not fight for every situation in life. As a youth, I didn't recognize that. I felt like I had to fight. I was from a very small town, and there was not a lot of success stories coming out of the town. There were some, but one thing that I do know is that when they were successful, they stayed away. So I didn't see the success coming back to my hometown. So I told myself, you will be successful. And I fought so hard. And it wasn't until I got married and my husband was explaining to me, you don't have to fight for everything. Like, some of the best things in life that have happened to you, they came without you fighting. And I had never sat down and just observed my life to see that that was true. But we don't have to fight. And as long as we have that perspective and we tell ourselves that, then we're going to continue to fight. And we're going to continue to put our body in a vulnerable state of high stress and disease.
Wow. And I just want to reiterate too something that you just said about the connection between our emotional health and our physical health is
Yes,
so important, in making sure that both of them are well, because we
yes.
can't have one without the other.
That is correct. My practice is called Synergy Care and Counseling. Why? Because I want to connect the mental and the physical health. So within therapy, we discuss ways of how physically your physical health is impacting your emotions. Earlier, I was speaking to the audience in regards to our eating and resting and our exercise. Even if you have injury, there are different things that you can do. I partner with a practice called Gym Cut Fitness and with my clients so that they can understand that we have to move. Movement is key. We have to move our bodies, even if you're sitting down in your chair all day. What are some different methods you can do? I just purchased a standing desk so that when I'm seeing some of my virtual clients, I'm not just sitting down so much, because we have to move our body. We can't just sit still. Like, there's no point in me using all the coping skills of breathing, guided meditations, if I'm not also moving my body and trying to help with the physical. The breathing and the exercise, yes, that helps with the emotional, but I have to help the physical man also. I have to work my physical body in a healthy way. And sometimes my individuals that I work with, they love doing CrossFit. CrossFit is rigorous. CrossFit is also causing a strain on our heart and our body as well. With how rigorous the workout is. Anytime you're doing a workout and they say consult with your physician first, you know you're getting ready to put your heart and bones and limbs through some rough activity. So even though we think, oh, I'm cut, I have great muscles, I have a great physique, I have that V shape. If you put your body through an enormous amount of stress to get there, like, how
Hmm.
healthy is your body and your mind if you had to go through all these stressful acts just to achieve that one goal of the V shape or the butterfly back? I True story. I was trying to lose weight, and my sister is an exercise physiologist, and she kept telling me, "I think you're stressed." And she's my younger sister, so I was like, "Girl, bye. I'm not stressed. I'm good. I'm good." And she says, "How about we just measure your stress levels in a sense of how about for one day, I just want you to write down all the ways in which you put yourself through stress." So she gave me a few little examples. Donna, my list was so long. And so then I said, okay, let me manage my stress in conjunction with working out. Do you know the weight immediately began to fall off? All because I
Wow.
managed my stress levels as well as ran and eating healthy. Sometimes we hit a point where we're not losing that weight like we want, and we feel like I got to cut this out, I got to eat this, I got to do this or do that better. But if we manage our stress, if we manage our mental health, in addition to eating properly, getting the amount of rest that we need, and drinking the proper amounts of water, that's like the total recipe for weight loss. Like that's the solution right there. But we have to do it all, not just a piece of it or a part of it. Respect your body. When someone looks at you, you want them to say, "Oh, they have self-respect," because they're not flying off the handle and being aggressive towards individuals, but also they look like they respect their bodies as well.
So good, so good, so good. And what, so say for instance, this is so, I guess, hypothetical, but say for
Mhm.
instance, if somebody is listening and they're like, okay, I'm in line with everything that she's talking about. My emotional health is intact. I'm working out. I feel good. I don't feel that stress. Um, why? Because why would somebody like if somebody felt like they were all right, they're like, I don't need therapy. But like even for myself, I'm like, I feel all right, but I still want to go to therapy because I feel
Mhm.
that that is something that can still help me and support me.
Mhm.
So if somebody is still like hesitant to therapy or they feel like they have to have all these problems to go, what would you say to that person?
I would say that as long as we have breath in our body and we want to strive to become better, seek therapy. Sometimes, if you don't know that there is a problem, you can't go get the answer. You can't search for the solution. You won't even begin to look for the solution. But if you're looking at your life and you're saying, I'm not disciplined in this area like I need to be, I'm more sad or I'm more content than I am happy. Like maybe I need to go to therapy. Some people rest in contentment, right? And so if we look at our emotions as an upward and a downward spiral, in the very middle where up and down meet is contentment. So what that means is that I am one level um away from going up to happiness and joy and blissfulness, or I am one notch down from going with the downward spiral. Because after contentment because is boredom. At the boredom you become pessimistic, and the list just continues to go down and down. I do not believe we're meant to be content in life. Contentment, in my opinion, is a danger zone. We don't want to rest in contentment. If it's the weekend, you're saying, I just want to be content. I just want to chill. I want to be good and just stay here. That is fine. But game on come Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the rest of the week. We can't just rest in contentment. And I am not saying that we need to have all of these high goals in life because, again, the high goals in life can lead to stress. But we can want to pick up a hobby. Maybe it's knitting. Maybe it's cross stitching. Maybe it's coloring in the adult coloring books. Maybe it's just walking a mile a day. But we don't have to have huge goals for our life. But I don't believe we should just sit in contentment. We should find something on that list from childhood that we never were given the opportunity to do. And now as an adult, oh, now is the time for me to try this or for me to try that. There are a lot of hobbies that we can develop that don't have a cost associated with them. But resting in contentment is danger. And that's just my opinion.
And I would say that's a good opinion.
So come out of contentment, seek therapy, talk to a licensed professional that can help you live a joyful life and not a life that's in the danger zone of contentment.
Amen. And if someone is interested in seeking treatment for mental illness or just making sure that their well-being is good and they're uninsured, what are some resources that you could share at this time?
Okay, so if the individual has insurance, definitely look on the back of your insurance card, contact the number on the back, and ask them, do we have an employee assistant program where I can be given a certain number of sessions for free? If so, how many sessions will I receive? If not, how much does my insurance cover? Some people are under the impression that I have insurance, that means I can have therapy as well. There are a lot of insurance plans that do not assist with therapy, and that's so sad to me. Where you are paying every month for this insurance, and then when you want to use it, because we hardly ever use our insurance, but when we're ready to use it, we can't. When it comes to therapy, because the therapy will not be paid until the high deductible has been met. But then there are some insurance plans where they pay full coverage, there is no copay or not. So look on the back of your insurance card and just find out, speak to your insurance provider and see if they do if therapy is included within your plan. Something else you can do if you do not have insurance is you can go on 211, and it's a United Way. It was created by United Way, and it's a national helpline that can help you learn more about the therapy resources in your area. So it's a national helpline. Give them a call, tell them where you live, and allow them to assist you with finding therapy. Something else you can do is, if you have a therapist in mind, let's say you've gone online and you've researched therapists, give them a call and see if they do pro bono work. Within my practice, we definitely do pro bono work. As a matter of fact, during COVID, oh my goodness, I saw so many individuals pro bono because a lot of individuals did not have insurance at that time. Now I've had to become more strategic and wise on the availability that I have for pro bono work. So for myself, I may see someone for 8 sessions, right, for free. But I do have a waiting list for that, but I do assess the individuals when they call and they are asking specifically about pro bono. If it is a need or a crisis that they're actually in, I will not put them on the list, because you do not need to wait to receive that therapy. Another thing you can do is you can ask a therapist if they have a sliding scale fee. You would be amazed. You would be so surprised to see what sliding scale fee that practice may offer. Okay. So just give that a try. We can't have pride and have help at the same time. One is going to rule. So either we're going to receive help or we're going to have pride, and you guys can choose which one you want. So if you are in undergrad, graduate school, or in a doctoral program, contact your university and ask them if they provide counseling services. The majority of universities, they do provide those services. However, it may not be for long-term treatment. It may be for a certain number of sessions. However, some sessions are better than none. And while you're in those sessions with them, before they just end the sessions completely, they should be assisting you with the next step, meaning if it's linkage to another or referral source to another therapist in the area. But before those sessions end, definitely get help on the next step as far as where you can go for your therapy to continue on.
Okay, great resources. And I will be sure to put all that information in the show notes. So, for those who, if you're interested and you're in need of those resources, I'll have it available in the show notes, and as well as on my website. I do have the information for crisis hotline and the 988. So you can check that out.
Yes.
So, Dr. DeAnna Chanel Murphy, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been so impactful, so much information. I'm going to listen to this again so that I can be sure that I'm in a good state as well, and that I have my ducks in a row when it comes to coping strategies. Because sometimes I feel like I'm in a good place some days, but then I get off track, and I just want to make sure that I'm consistent. And also, if I need help in different areas, to not be stagnant, to do that. So thank you so much for being just a well of wisdom today and providing your expertise, and your passion has shown a lot. And right now, I just want to give you the opportunity if there's anything else that you'd like to share with the audience at this time.
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on your platform, and I'm so proud of you and the work that you're doing. Keep shining. Don't ever sit in that contentment. And lastly, if you find yourself unable to do deep breathing because you're in a public space and you're worried about COVID, or if you're just somewhere and you can't exercise, you can't get to that guided meditation, another very simple tool that we can do is hum. The vibrations in humming, they kind of help calm our nervous system down. So there is always something that can be done. And if we can find that great therapist, they can further assist you with other tools to kind of help you with your healing journey.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard this information here first. And be sure to check out the show notes for the resources mentioned in today's episode. Until next time, ciao. Hey, Overcomers. Thanks for tuning in. For more information, head on over to DeAnnaCherie.com. If you want to find me online, I'm at I am Donna Cherie on Instagram and Donna Cherie on Facebook. Don't forget to join the Overcomers Confidence Club Facebook community. And of course, if you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes.